Cross, it's on the campus, and we have a member has to leave in an emergency, so we'll at least get us started right now. Okay. Hi, I'm Eve Bolton, and this is the Cincinnati School Board Finance Committee. We're going to go around the horn, so to speak, or the U, and everybody please introduce yourselves. If we'll start over there.
Hi, I'm Nan Haygood. I'm the State and Federal Programs Manager in the Treasurer's Office.
Hello, my name is Julio Garcia. I'm the Senior Grant Accountant.
Good morning, Cody Hutchins, Contract Analyst.
Good morning, Vera Brooks, Director of Early Childhood.
Shauna Murphy, Superintendent.
Good morning, Deb Klein, Assistant Superintendent.
Good morning, Kendra Mapp, Board Member.
Mr. Crossett is on his way, Treasurer.
Jim Crossett, Board Member.
Right on cue. Entered stage left. Now get seated. There, now we're good. Get it, Treasurer.
Michael Guskin, Treasurer.
Liz Martin, Assistant Treasurer and Controller.
Kevin Ashley, Director of Financial Reporting and Transparency.
Good morning, Lauren Haverkosh, Chief Audit Executive.
Carrie Armbruster, Board Member.
Phyllis Davis, Board Administrative Assistant.
Rob Wilson, Technician. And if you'd like to speak during the end of this meeting for the hearing of the public, please click the hand icon and we will invite you over at the end to speak. And then, of course, if you're in person, you can also let the chair know as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And just in order to get started, let's begin right away with the treasurer and old business.
Unless there's some reason for me to change the agenda, we'll go right into old business.
Go to it.
First thing on the agenda would be the treasurer's goals for 2026. Rob, if you're following along at home, yes, thank you. Slide. Let's see. Also slide 33. So, there's also the full text of it. So working through my goals for 2026, if you remember, the treasurer's evaluation period now runs January through December, so that basically mirrors a calendar year. I did create some goals last fall, based on kind of a different arrangement, and have updated those. So I have 6 goals for your review, hopefully with your approval to kind of move forward with those from this committee. I know I've sent it out for comments. Thank you for the comments I've received back. Individual feedback has been helpful. Kind of the big sticks, and I think I tried to, in some ways, kind of mirror, the superintendent has kind of high risk, high reward goals. So I've tried to do kind of a similar thing here. So just quickly to go through them. First one obviously is budget process improvements. It's an ongoing thing that we work through. Second one is building a strategic financial plan. So it's
Mike, can you use that mic next to you or switch mic?
Or all three.
Now, I feel like you have the press conference.
Exactly.
You got 5 mics in front of you. Is this better, Rob?
It is.
Okay. So second goal is working on the financial side of the strategic plan and consist in conjunction with the superintendent and the district strategic plan. Goal 3 is a new one, but one of the things that we've learned in working with the state is there are a lot of new expectations around not only the financial forecast, but also how we do our financial reporting and coding and stuff. So that's going to be a big state emphasis, and we're going to have to do some work to make sure we stay in compliance with that. Goal 4 is continuing community outreach. So, which is the town halls, the podcast, other places. Got to do a fun episode of Boiling Point last night. Miss Dunn was there, so for a little bit, so got to hear the end of her
Went
part.
well.
I think it went well. Got to hear the end of her section, and so that was fun.
Yeah, she had a star too.
She is a star, yeah. She is a star. I was listening along. I'm like, this is good. So. Goal 5, and we've talked about this, is creating a new, we call it popular annual financial report. So while we do the annual comprehensive report every year, and which is award-winning, by the way, we also want something that's a little more accessible to the public, and so we've been working on that. Kevin and Cody and I have been working on that project. And then our final goal is a reorganization of the accounts receivable function at the district. So involves making sure we get all the revenue we can, that we book it correctly, we manage cash and all those things. So happy for feedback on the goals.
Do any members have any comments, suggestions? This is sort of our third time through in a way. And very, very important because we do hold these folks accountable to the goals that we all mutually work out. Member Matt?
I was just gonna say, thank you for receiving the feedback. I like that your goals are comprehensive and well-rounded, and it's covering several different aspects. I like the consideration with, having this engagement with Bellwether to working through the strategic plan, and given this outlook of where we are with our finances as it pertains to levy discussions. Obviously, that's a very critical and topic that not only we are discussing, but the community is discussing as well. And so I thank you for including that in your goals. I like the opportunity to engage and interface more with the public through the annual report. And so and also I know we talked about making that really digestible in our committee meeting. And then just lastly, making sure that there's the accountability aspect with the accounts receivable function. So I appreciate that. I think it's well-rounded, a comprehensive, presentation of your goals. So thank you for that.
Great. Mr. Crossett?
Oh, yes, thank you. No, these are great goals. Really, really good goals. They're the goals that we need as a district. Thank you very much for your willingness to take these on. On goal number 2, I don't know if it needs to specifically say that, but I think there's a really big deal here, which is the payoff of the facilities master plan in 2031. I think that is a giant strategic component of our future. And I don't know if that needs to be specifically identified in the goal 2, and to incorporate that into, you talked about future levies, but also maybe about, that's a big, big point. So I'm sure you would consider that, but I don't know if it needs to be highlighted or not. And also on the accounts receivable function, I think that's a really good one. I think there might be, I guess you mentioned it, cash management's part of that. Okay, all right, good.
Our current kind of accounts receivable function is really accounts receivable and cash management.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of a segue to our next topic, but really making sure we put the right amount of effort into both of those separate functions, because they're both separate and they're both critical, as you know.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think they're good, and I'm glad to see them. I continue to be very interested in what you and the assistant treasurer continue to work on, and we talk about a little bit later today, about the emphasis on what the school treasurers are doing and the activity within the schools. And I think the more that we send to the school, which seems to be one of the forward thrusts of this budget process, the more that'll become important. I appreciate you also putting some high stakes goals in there so you have that similar kind of weight on your shoulders, so to speak, that the superintendent has. I mean, she has to depend on more people to deliver than you do, including 34,000 children. But I think that's important to understand, and I think that's great. It's kind of your partnership there. And I would agree that I think the aim of almost anything at this point in time, our North Star is that 30-31 and the payoff of the FMP. And of course, when we're talking about today, how do we get there and how will the public have to help us? So I do think that that's a guiding star for sure. Mike?
I'll add a sentence just to call that out. I think that's a great suggestion with the upcoming FMP and how that's going to be.
Any other comments? Superintendent, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'm delighted that Treasurer Guston is including all the work with Bellwether. It has been a journey. I'm very excited to see where this will land, and he's been a good partner to be able to work with every week on this.
Great. And since we did introductions, we've had a wonderful person join us, star of stage, screen, and radio. Michelle Dunn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Michelle Dunn with Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, yes.
I'm just kind of looking through it. Are you able to speak to Treasurer Guston? And I see some metrics in here, but are you able to speak to, I guess, kind of like the aspects that would be measurable for us?
Yeah, for sure. Some of them unfortunately are going to be done, and then how the board views the quality. For example, the financial plan, obviously, is it done on time? But then also, how useful is it to the board? Board members have to kind of make those value judgments. Some places are easier to do the goals. And some of the goals are all or none. Do we pass the audit? Does the state accept our forecast? So it is hard to do some of the traditional, X to Y goals. I think a lot of times we're able to go from here to here. Some of these things are new, and so implementing something new might be this year or next year, like for the AR stuff. This year might be creating a plan.
This is more baseline.
And creating a baseline. Next year, if it's a good goal, then assistant treasurer's goal, then we can say, okay, here's where the baseline is in 27, 28, and we've increased by X.
Totally understandable, and I recognize needing that baseline data. I'm wondering, is there room or capacity, maybe with goal 6? I'm looking for your just input here. Or is this still, would you still consider this as like an area of baseline data?
I mean, we have metrics for some of these things for sure, but we're also contemplating a fairly big reorg. So this is really more of establishing a new baseline.
And so maybe that is something that can, to some extent, either be called out or even in maybe just the discussion of the goals, just with the additional board members highlighting that as well.
Any other comments? Great. Thank you for presenting any number of times and taking the input. We also, for the public's benefit, both the superintendent and the treasurer have been engaged in their own separate kind of reorganization of their shops. And so we'll talk briefly about some aspects of the treasurer's reorganization. We've done this before in executive session, and we have some limited discussion today about some aspects. Treasurer?
Thank you. And so I will say, if you go to the next slide, Rob, or actually next two, it's a little easier to talk in detail with my reorganization. I have far fewer employees than the superintendent, so I can get much more granular. But kind of where I wanted to give this committee an update. As you mentioned, we talked in executive session. Our current state of our reorganization is really a mixture of three things happening kind of concurrently. My internal leadership team in the treasurer's office, we created a strategic reorganization plan, which is what we shared with this committee in executive session before. Concurrently, obviously the FY27 budget, there are constraints, so there were some reductions based on budget constraints and trying to hit our budget target. And then as part of that, and I'm sure you'll see it in the slides as before, is one of the recommendations that will come up is that from union leadership and administration is kind of a merger reorganization between a couple central office departments, including the treasurer's office. So all three of those things, hello. Thanks for joining us. All three of those things are happening concurrently, and so sometimes it's hard. You're taking things out, putting things in, moving things around, negotiating with other stakeholders as best you can. Trying to do what's right for everyone. So part we wanted to talk about today, well, I'll go one more slide. I'm going to turn this over to Assistant Treasurer second. The other thing I think is really good about our reorg is it's integrated with the overall and kind of integrated with what the superintendent wants to do. So the way to think about our office is two separate kind of types of employees. So we have folks who do district-wide tasks, so there are things that are done at that district level. The person who actually processes payroll does it for all 6,000 employees, Same thing with paying our taxes, making sure the unions get their union dues. Those are district-wide tasks. Getting in our foundation funds from the state, those are district-wide tasks. But we also have the ability to align a good group of our staff with the corridors, with the networks. And I think Superintendent's going to present a lot about her networks. And it'll be really easy for us to align people to those networks. So, like Assistant Superintendent Klein has a network, we can assign an accountant there, we can assign some payroll folks there. And so again, these people can work in a more tight group. And I think that's a really, really good way to set us up for future success. I wanted to say that. And then Assistant Treasurer Martin's going to talk about kind of the AR cash management reorg and what we need to do there.
Yes. So Rob, if we go to the next slide. So right now, the current structure in accounts receivable is we have one supervisor who handles the cash management as well as all the accounts receivable duties, and then there's a senior account tech that supports him. What we would propose, this proposal is to fill positions, one, an accounts receivable billing specialist whose duties are to invoice the CRA agreements. It says 10.5 million there, but we just sent out the May billings and it's actually going to be 11.5 million in CRA billings total for the year. Posting the TIF payments that we receive, timely invoicing of pass-through stipends. So we have community partners that pay us and then we pass those stipends along to teachers or employees. And so we want to make sure we get better at invoicing those community partners so we have the revenue to pay everybody more timely, as well as accurate and timely posting of the tax revenue, making sure that when it comes in, we're getting it distributed to the correct lines, and other district billing as needed. So really someone whose entire job would be focused on the invoicing and posting of revenue. And then another person whose job would be the cash management oversight. So they would oversee all deposits at all schools and all central office budget units that accept cash. They would reconcile the activity that happens in Focus, which is our cash drawers at the schools, with the bank activity that we're seeing. So making sure that we're not going too long without seeing those deposits in the bank. We know where it's all coming from. We know where it belongs to be. This person would also travel around and do school visits, making sure that they're monitoring the safe, that cash isn't piling up in safes, that the safe is working and everybody who needs access to it has the code to get into it and is using it appropriately. This person would develop and update the SOPs for cash handling. They are old at this point and we would want to revamp that, and also work with all school support staff on the cash handling procedures. So that would include training senior lead secretaries or senior support specialists at the elementary schools, as well as working with the senior account tech or the school treasurers, if you will, at the high schools, making sure we have processes in place of what to do if you're collecting cash late at a basketball game. How do we make sure that's managed appropriately?
I think that's a good, if I can jump in, I think Chief Audit Executive Haverkost would tell you that cash is one of our biggest potential liabilities, cash handling the district, but also being able to proactively train folks, and there is a decent amount of turnover at the schools, plus the number of folks who could handle cash. There's a lot of places where we don't even think about it, but you have a play, you have a sporting event, you're trying to find people who are willing to do that and collect the tickets and those sort of things. And so being able to proactively put a lot of time into going out, meeting with folks, staying on it is a huge change in what we're doing. And it puts a lot of support, as you mentioned, Ms. Bolton, as we're asking the schools to do more, we're saying schools will do more. We want to make sure that we can give them the supports to do it well.
Yes, and then this would also give the supervisor an opportunity to do true aging work, making sure that we're not having outstanding payments that we're not receiving, making sure they can troubleshoot, reviewing everything to get a second set of eyes on billing procedures and entries. And again, I wouldn't speak for her, but I'd say chief audit could that extra review would be helpful for our risks as well.
Mr. Crossett?
Yeah, I just want to be sure I'm clear. Which one of these two positions is going to pursue collections of late payments?
That would be the supervisor that we have now. That role would change. This would not be either of these.
I see.
So we'd be separating these two functions from the supervisor.
Okay.
The supervisor would then move into that true AR supervisor,
Collections
collections, efforts, reviews, tracking down.
Great,
Making
okay.
sure everything's landing in the right spot.
And then on the cash handling, will we put a strategic emphasis on minimizing where we have cash transactions? Can we emphasize more and more transactions via debit card or credit card? Is that strategically could be a goal or an objective or something for the assistant treasurer?
We've made a lot of progress there, I will say. State did not help us when they required, Superintendent Murphy's like, yep, the state did not help us when they required us to take cash for athletic admissions. That was unhelpful. I mean, we've done it wherever. We also have to be, cognizant, of our families. And, we have folks who are unbanked. We have folks who we want to be able to be responsive to them, but we try, there's, Focus has a payment portal, happy to, put your credit card in there. We've successfully put credit card devices at all our schools. So the options are there, and we try to push down, but we also realize you're never going to get to zero.
Thank you.
Any other
Yeah,
questions
that's
about this? Yeah.
I think this is great, and I would, this is just from personal background, and maybe things are different here, but for the training, it wouldn't be bad to just have some aspect of that training pertain to how getting the teenagers, the young people who are handling money on behalf of their program. For example, if you run a theater program, you're training kids to manage the box office. You're training kids to keep accounts and reports and what have you, and receipts. So just not that you all would have to do that training, but the idea that you need some assurance by the grown-up that is in charge of those kids, if they're learning those things, because it's such, a little theater thing is like a little world, and it's all kinds of jobs. So that would just add that as something that the school personnel should be doing.
Okay.
Any other concerns that you have? Is there a timeline about this? We're going to get it ready for the beginning of the school year, or
That would be the
what's
game.
the thought?
That would be the game plan.
Okay. I like it. That's the best thing about schools. You get to start school, like January is the calendar year. Then there's August. You have any number of the beginning. And then semesters, it starts all over. New beginnings. All the time.
There's a constant new beginning.
There's a constant new beginning. It's part of the charm of the whole thing.
Yes. All right. Let's spend a couple minutes just on. I know this was a concern of yours. Talking about the school treasurers, or we call them senior accounting techs. So.
Yeah, so we discussed previously, and again, there's kind of two models to consider. The school treasurers or the senior account techs are only in the high school. That's a point I wanted to make clear. And right now, they're reporting to the principal. So I wrote some pros and cons to kind of the two different models we can consider. Reporting to the principal gives them, a pro is it gives them on-site leadership and accountability right there in the building. They're integrated with the school staff. They can get more familiar with the specific or unique school attributes so that they can tailor what they need to do to the schools. Some of the cons with reporting to the principal is there's a little bit less fiscal oversight. So the principals aren't always in the details of the fiscal oversight. And there's no consistent centrally managed processes for things. And it's our current practice that we're doing. We have noted some issues, here or there. With reporting to the treasurer's office, it would of course, the pro would be increased fiscal oversight. That's what our job is. And centrally managed processes, we'd set a standard, everybody would be doing the same thing. And a con would be, it would be some administrative overhead in the treasurer's office as we think about, where we're making reductions for budgets. That's something to consider. And there could be conflicts and directives between the treasurer's office and the school. So we're not on site. There could be some issues that arise. I think that this is a pretty good indication of where we are. I do want to point out that if there's a cash management specialist, even if the school treasurers would report to the principal, we would have someone on our team working with them still. So there'd be a little bit more increased fiscal oversight than we have now with that cash management specialist. I just think that that's important to consider when looking at these two as well.
I think after last conversation we had with the superintendent in this committee, I think where administration consensus kind of landed were a couple of things. I think we landed at least our kind of thinking was they would continue to report to the principal. We would require folks to come to do mandatory training, and Dr. Smith is working on that, and we've been in communication with that to make sure on those district-wide training days that we get some time to do training with them, and that we would like to be able to give some feedback back to the principals for evaluation feedback, so we could set up a process so that we can provide the principals who are the supervisors, some metrics about how their staff is doing on the financial stuff, so that they see them every day, but we would just give some very black and white, hey, from our perspective, here's financially how your staff is doing.
Great. Jim, any question?
Yeah, I understand that there's an interest in having these folks continue to report to the principal, but I think the idea of increased financial oversight from our treasurer's office is critical. And I also think that if we put something in some of these more stringent oversights, and maybe it's even a dotted line to the treasurer's office, I think that we should calculate a baseline. I think there's some ROI here that could cover some of that administrative overhead in terms of cash flow and cash management. So I think that's going to be really important for our taxpayers feeling good about how we manage the district. So those are my thoughts.
I think that's good. You have enough guidance there, and appreciate the administration's recommendation, and with caution from board member Crossett, and think all this fits together actually quite well, the training and the stuff you just discussed before. Any other items for us there? Comments further? Superintendent? All right. Let's go on to new business. Mr. Ashley.
Thank you. Glad to be back after being out.
Yes,
for a couple
seriously.
meetings, and, one was a vacation and one was a conference, so, but I'm back this month at least. But I appreciate Cody presenting the last 2 months.
He wasn't nearly as good as you.
Definitely not.
And he even said so. I don't know, he's got a bit of a shape over there, a
A
haircut.
little bit. But,
Okay.
But he's been a big help in putting together helping put together the slides as well as presenting, so appreciate that. So we'll just go through these
Yes.
pretty quickly. The slide number 4 is the general ledger balances. So you'll notice if you look at previous, going back a few months at least, Star Ohio, we do have 81 million there as a result of the first half tax settlement being received. No real changes there. The only thing I would note is we will be paying off the $3 million debt issuance that had a sinking fund attached to it. So we have all the invoices ready to go for debt payments at the end of this month.
We like that.
Sorry. Yeah, superintendent and I are trying to coordinate our clapping times.
I know, but putting the applause sign on opposite parts of the wall is a little much. That was not in the budget.
It's still a work in progress.
I'm
think we're
sure
getting
you'll
better.
work it out. Keep on going.
Okey doke. So next slide. I'm trying to follow along here, sorry. General fund is at 70 million. You'll see that again in the other slides. Debt service again with 67 million. And then no real surprises in terms of the other funds where we are at this point. We'll be getting ready to do like final PCRs for the year, the fiscal year. And so we'll see where we are in terms of having to do fund advances at the end of June. And we'll probably talk about those at finance next month
Okay.
as we get ready for board. General fund. I'm sorry, go back to slide 7. Mike put together the cash flow statement. I don't know if there's anything in particular you want to highlight.
I think you're a little rusty, Kevin. You miss a couple months and you get a little rusty. No, I think I usually try to always explain significant changes, specifically negatives or high numbers. This is really the property tax settlement related. So if you recall, when we get property tax advances, we book everything to general property tax. The final settlement tells us how much of that needs to go to tangible personal property tax. So you see that line has money, but that means we take a little out of the general that we already booked. Overall, it's there. You also see under other expenses, that number went up significantly. That is kind of the money that gets taken off the top for property tax collection fees. So the county charges us to collect the property taxes and also to work on collecting delinquent taxes. So all comes out of the settlement. We get one check, but then we have to recognize
Fix it.
revenue in different spots and recognize the expenses for that side. But that's the big one. So I'll send it back to Mr. Ashley.
All right, the next slide is cash balances. You'll see, compared to the prior 2 years, it's a little bit lower. I think some of that will resolve by the end of June, but, we're monitoring that. So we know tax revenue is down, state funding is down from where we anticipated it. So all of that will hopefully flush out by the time we get to the end of the year. Encumbrances are down a little bit. Part of that is pulling back some of the funding or some of the funds that were available that hadn't been spent. So we're a little bit lower there, which will help us as well. Next slide shows a 3-year history of general fund cash balance. You can see 70.5 kind of in relation to where it's been the last few years. Next slide is revenue, showing all the revenue. Revenue is down slightly from last year. Some of that is timing, but we're at like 88% of revenue budgeted where we were at 89 last year. So pretty much on track in terms of that. Expenditures.
I think that's very much on track. 88 versus 89. That's great.
So expenditures, when you go to the next slide, are a little bit higher, like at 86% versus we were at about 81% of actual last year. And just comparing budget to actual for general fund. So the key areas that were up, obviously salaries and benefits are up about 7 million. The other things are down a little, so that kind of offsets. But next slide is unencumbered or uncommitted. This year we have 8.3 million in that bucket. Last year it was about 8.8. So again, pretty well on track with the prior year.
Very flat, yeah.
The next slides are what we typically present for preschool.
Preschool.
And we have Ms. Brooks here today. So,
Luckily, we have the
so
expert.
any questions can go to Ms. Brooks. But just we'll go over these real quick, and then if she wants to add anything, that'd be great. This one shows all preschool students served by CPS, all funding sources, and so for April is 1,880, which was pretty much the same as the prior month, and then comparing to last year. The next slide is where we calculate the tuition assistance. for the month. So again, 604 students were assisted in some way through tuition assistance, maybe partial funding, et cetera. But at least some of their funding source came from the levy dollars. The next slide, again, is showing that 604, the number of students being served through that. And then the last slide, well, no, it's not the last slide. Next to last slide is kind of a profit and loss statement for the levy dollars. And the middle column is the current year actual compared to last year's actual. The following slide is one that Cody did some analysis on, put together. We got some information from Hector Palenko at CPP. He was very helpful in giving us some of that. So we tried to compare, this kind of came up as a request from Mr. Cossett, I believe. Just doing some comparison of the number of students that CPS serves, the number of classrooms and sites, taking the portion of the levy dollars that were utilized by CPS, as well as adding in all the other funding sources like Title I, Head Start, the ECE grant, pilot grant we had. And so what we focused on here was last fiscal year because the year was complete. And so we had full data for the year. We took a stab at 26, but we kind of want to see if this is the format you'd like to see. And then it'd probably be more meaningful once we close the year to do a full assessment for 26. So I think that's as far as I have as relating to the presentation, but if you have any questions or anything else.
I think you did explain, but because of the chart and because we go to the public, if you look at 16 again, to be able to have that, I think you have a footnote and whatever for the difference of the years.
Yeah, so,
People benefiting from the subsidy and what have you, if you'll talk a little bit more about that. I think you started to, or you did a little bit, but maybe a little bit more there.
so one of the things is the objective is always to find the funding sources that are available to students.
And we do have the super sleuth over there.
And so those funds are utilized first. And in the last year, correct me if I'm wrong, they did expand the ECE grant as a pilot program. This year, they didn't provide as much funding for that, but we continued the pilot.
We continued.
Of course.
I'm sorry. We continued, so we have in our state grant, of ECE grant, there are still 600 seats. 120 will continue to be full day. The other 480 will be half day that we will have now with some of the changing of their guidelines. We will be able to match with other grant funding. So our goal that I've set with my team for the upcoming year, and thank you to these great people on this side that meet with me monthly to come up with brilliant ideas. Our goal will be to fill our Head Start and our ECE grant seats first by October, the first week of October. And then it will go to the other expansion dollars.
That's great. And if we are going to the public anytime soon, this would be one of the narratives that will have to be explained, not
Yes.
necessarily because of preschool or anything we're going to be asking for is about preschool, but this chart looks like we're not doing something unless that's explained.
Yes, because each grant, along with our expansion dollars, has a family poverty level a family has to qualify for.
That's right. That's great. Thank you for that. Jim?
So thank you for creating this chart, and I appreciate you accommodating my interest in this. So what I was curious about is, so the Preschool Promise has about half of the number of students that CPS has, but they receive twice as much of the levy money. And is that because we have other funding sources that drives that money towards Preschool Promise? Is that the way the agreement works? Is that the way the agreement works?
But yes, we, as you can see, and the other sources used, in preschool, the levy dollars are always last dollar in.
Yeah.
So, we've done, Director Brooks and her team with some assistance from our side. And, we've done a really good job of bringing in all sorts of extra funding sources, from Head Start and Title I to the early childhood grants. And state continues to fund those for us. So we must be doing something right. I've never heard anything but glowing, remarks from the state folks. And so, yeah, we use those dollars first. Preschool Promise does not have really other significant funding sources.
Well, it appears they have some, right? The total sources are 14
I
versus,
think the 14,000 was through some agreements they have with partners. We didn't really delve into
sure,
that too much.
but they have some.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very
it's
minimal.
very minimal, but
So
yes.
my question is, like, we just passed this levy last year, and it's a 10-year levy. If, say, 5 years from now, some of these other sources that we have, say Title I, changes, does that mean that if we have less money from other sources, that we would be able to recoup more from the levy dollars allocation or not?
Yes, because the way the MOU works, the split is recalculated every year.
Okay,
And so, yes, if for example, the early childhood grant would be phased out, or Head Start changed,
yeah.
then we're gonna need to use more of the money, which then re-levels.
So we have some built-in sustainability.
Yes.
Yes. And I did request at their last board member meeting, and I brought the topic up, that we will need more support, especially regarding around diagnostic teams and students that may qualify for special education services. Because our diagnostic teams right now, we set aside an amount of money, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, we set aside part of this funding to support those diagnostic teams that then service students who are in private providers and others. So I did put out there a request of some of their share should come over and help us, because that number is growing.
That makes sense. That's a fairness moment. Agreed.
And I do think it needs to be emphasized that as a person that was here when this was all created, there was a belief, an assumption, and I can broadly remember a commitment of the effort of the private providers who were going to be receiving, in order to serve their students, their kids, they would be receiving these public dollars. This is a remarkable thing when public dollars are given to private group, which of course is happening all over the state in many ways. But we kind of limited, obviously, to preschool. There was an assumption that there would be money raised from other contributors, other concerns. That really has not happened in great numbers. And so it does look very strange. We have this many kids and they're receiving so much more money of the very limited funds that exist. And it is keeping, it's a problem with growth too. And we've now we are not in a position to grow anymore. We may have reached the saturation mark anyway, and we knew we would, and those numbers have actually declined as the number of very little people in the district that might be able to be served. But that is a problem, and we'll have to, but I'm glad that, I think it was the previous treasurer and folks and superintendent that worked that out, that the agreement would be more reflective of the number of kids served. If I recall, that's one of the changes in the MOU, I believe, that was worked out. So, any other comments regarding preschool? Super Sleuth? Assistant Soup, you good? I'm good. Okay. Well, yeah, we good there? Let's keep going then.
Let's talk about grants.
Good job. Hit it.
All right, I'm ready to go now. All right, here is our graph of where our spending is overall on our
Love
state
it.
and federal grants. We did see, as expected, a pretty good boost, bringing in the end of March and April as schools finalized, not just schools, but budget managers finalize their plans for the year, entering items for summer school and things like that. So we did shoot quite a bit up over the 56% from last month to 63%, which is also about 7% ahead of our target. That's of course actually
good.
and encumbrances. So a lot going on last month. And of course, the details are always available for the individual grants by clicking through on the slide. All right.
Yay.
Yeah, we are,
I didn't put the applause sign on, but my bad. I missed that cue.
so this, breaks it down again. Shout out to the non-public team and my, person that works with them, Jill, that she's really been in constant contact along with, Dr. Futch and the team to really help them identify ways to spend and get that out. And again, that only benefits the district, especially in
Right.
terms of carryover. So we all have to work together to manage these funds properly. We're up above our goal again at 63%, and
Great.
probably even be a little bit more next month.
It's great.
I did add the school amounts because they're always on there, but I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
goes through. But we spend a huge amount of our time working with schools and principals, especially Serena, our compliance officer, and so we definitely want to shout out to them as well. All the people it takes to get something processed. That they've done a good job of trying to get those funds spent appropriately this year.
Yeah, we like to spend this year's money on this year's kids.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Before you go off to the next slide, let's talk about the monitoring review.
Uh-oh, okay.
I think that's a worthwhile.
Yeah, so we've had a busy month, working on these numbers. We had our monitoring review for all of the consolidated grants, which are basically the ones that are displayed on the next slide. With the state, they actually monitored last fiscal year. They've changed their process a little bit, but it basically is a deep dive into all of those programs, their alignment with the intent and purpose, the impact, outcomes, and measurable outcomes, our financial practices, they pull invoices and all kinds of things. And so we had our final meeting with them, and we were considered compliant on all those aspects. So
Applause.
Now we're getting there.
we've come a long way, and so obviously we couldn't do that without the work of my team. Julio is our expert on DSS and ECE, which, among other things, works a lot with the schools, especially on these Title I grants.
Are there other school districts that are not compliant? I'm just curious.
Yes, and
Generally.
there can be different levels, so you can get kind of like suggestions for improvement. You can actually get a finding, or you can get a technical assistance. And so, in my first year of taking over in the transition, before my team, started, I feel like working so hard, we did have an issue cited for our spending. So we were actually non-compliant on our spending in one of our grants. So of course, that was our target the first year. So we have, gotten to the point where we do not have findings this year or those kind of things. So
I was thinking you were going to say like, yeah, Cleveland's never compliant or something like that.
I mean, we can see everybody's reports, but it's very common.
We'll bring them next month. No.
It is very common to have at least some, technical
Sure.
assistance or findings. And when that happens, you have to have a 30-day improvement plan. I mean, it's pretty much similar to the financial audit where steps have to be taken. And at the worst case scenario, you could be denied funds if it's determined over multiple years that you're not managing them compliantly. So, again, I feel like we worked really hard to get to this state, and hopefully
You have.
we'll be able to continue. Other than that, of course, just spending times with the final spends and the budget planning as everybody is right now. The next one, so as I said, these are basically the grants that were part of that audit, except for the last two, the non-competitive. We are now finally above, our target goal on all of the grants.
That's great.
Last month, we were still down on one.
Superintendent's applauding.
Oh, sorry.
Celebrate what we can. And then, of course, the last two that are in green, those are the two, school-based grants that don't have carryover, so we always focus on those because, any penny you don't spend goes back to the state. So those are always important from a budget management and
And I'll interject in fairness so that the public knows there have been years, not only about being cited or something, which is not that often ever, but the idea where we were not spending all the money that we could. And we had to kind of have I think it was 2 years ago, particularly in Finance Committee, the treasurer finally had to kind of say that, and that was a concern. But now we can go to the public and say, listen, we are efficient enough that what we're getting, we're spending on your kids. We really greatly appreciate it, especially since it's a pretty unsupportive federal government anyway. We certainly want to spend all those federal dollars that we possibly can. And you never know when like we had to earlier, sue them to get them. But I'm glad you're spending them.
yeah, and I mean, the state's really doubled down on that to the point, just in the last 2 years that they have implemented guidelines that if you have swept funds, you will not be, given the additional allocations, you won't share in the redistribution of funds. So there is a direct impact of not doing that, a direct financial
right.
impact. So we're gonna try to keep it up and
Thank you.
keep doing the best we can. And that's it for me.
All right. Treasurer, next.
I think we are on to KPI updates. So,
Sir, so Rob, if you want to go to the next slide. To come full circle today, we talked about the financial side of things, but we're going to talk about outcomes for preschool. It
Great.
just so happens we got the expert here, my best friend here,
Little-
Director Brooks.
Little peoples.
And thank you also, Assistant Superintendent Klein, for coming to assist us. But if you want to go to the next, yep, thank you, Rob. So here, what we did, we took a couple slides and took from the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment report.
And this is big news.
This is huge news, huge news.
This is big news.
That's why I called in the big dogs to come talk about it.
Well, I do think CPS is big dog.
I think so, and we got a slide that's going to prove that.
All right.
there we go.
All right.
Oh, I'm sure they're listening off-site.
I'm sure.
So what we have here on this first slide is just the overall and the language and literacy of the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. In 2024 and 25, the KRA report is out on the district website, and those links are there at the bottom if anybody wants to see the full report or the summary report. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the 2026 report is yet published, so I don't have a link to that. So we got some graphs from that as well. In 2025, 2026 that readiness assessment changed a little bit to include a little more breakdown, and we'll show on those slides, of our preschool disability and preschool special education component. So as you can see here, the big things to note here are the demonstrating blocks and how much larger those have grown. I think almost 11% from last year, so that's incredible. And we see the literacy score going up, correct me if I'm wrong, almost 20% on track?
Can I?
Absolutely.
Green
Anytime you want.
is good.
Yes.
So even dark green and light green means that students are on track. So, and the 26, 27, the next year data, we don't take this test until next year. So this is the most current that Innovations has provided us.
And these two charts tell us what? That we are.
We're doing great.
We're doing well.
Put some numbers there for the public.
So.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, yes, Member Armbruster.
Yes, so I read a lot of these types of things
Yes.
for my own kids. But so the first one, you can see the light green and the dark green are demonstrating and approaching, which is great.
Yes.
This next one says on track and not on track, but it's the same coloration.
But that's just for the standard of language and literacy.
Okay, the coloring's confusing though, because the coloring means one thing in one slide, or one graph, and another
Means
thing in
the other,
another
and
graph.
That's how innovation,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just, that's
I
confusing.
will give them that feedback. We try to keep it consistent because they work and we have a shared agreement with also CPP and CAA, our Head Start. So, but that is a very good call out, and I will let them know that, yes.
Find
So
some,
would you-
find some different shades of green.
That's right. Jim,
So
Yes.
this, year over year, these are significant improvements. Why?
Well, we were at this stage before 2020, and 2020 hit. And we were limited to only accepting, due to regulations with COVID, could only accept 1,500 students, due to spacing. And so we have come back to then show regain. With this past year, last 2 years, we've realigned the department and individuals' roles and responsibilities with more of a focus, thanks to the direction of these two young ladies next to me. That instead of just being pure compliance, we really got to dig deep and align and collaborate with principals and other grade levels, primarily K1, on instruction. And really start getting access to the other data at kindergarten and first grade and scaffold back to then create our own professional development for our own preschool teachers based on our data that we were doing then in the trainings for them to implement in our preschool classrooms. So we continue to grow, we're continuing to develop those PDs and how we're coaching to really service our kids at where they're at and how we can continue to move forward. So we did see a big jump in instruction, which we were thrilled about.
So, is there any, this is just the CPS kids, this is not the preschool promise kids?
The KRA overall, the first chart, are all preschool. So if I'm correct, and that would be our kids that were serviced either 1 year or 2 years in a CPS preschool, along with any other experience. It could be from a private provider, it could be that maybe they didn't go anywhere.
Right, I understand. And is any of these efforts gonna have an impact on third grade reading outcomes in the future? Is there a way to?
I think we have shared past data that suggests yes, without question. Happy to dig into that for a more updated report. And by the way, we should get our preliminary third grade results next Wednesday, I believe.
Okay. And so just as a piece of information, I believe that our community resource Clicky, that manages resource coordinators for some of our schools, I have some understanding that they might be able to collect, they are collecting some data on kindergarten readiness from students coming not from CPS. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but that might be a suggestion to talk to them. There may be some data there that could be helpful. I think
Is that what
because their process is so much more.
Is that what
more robust.
Darlene?
Yeah.
I'll
or,
reach out to
uh,
Darlene.
what's her-
Annie.
Annie.
I think their process is so much more robust than any of the other resource coordinators. They've got data, and that might be a model for what we could go district-wide, if it's data that's helpful.
Well,
Just
in their
something I've
particular,
happened upon recently.
in their particular schools too, at least in a couple of them, they've been doing early literacy more so than we've been able to do. And they've done that through other groups, so to speak, that are serving those schools. But yeah, I think that's great. The more information we have, the better.
I'll reach out to them.
We do lead the state in preschool, so let's just walk it.
Keep going.
Next slide, Mr. Rubb. So I think this addresses one of the points Board Member Crossett was just talking about, whether it was CPS experience or all other experiences. So this chart breaks down the first overall chart into whether they were CPS enrollment versus all other experiences, whether they attended a private preschool or did not attend preschool at all. But we do segment that out, and you can see that the greens are higher for CPS and all other. So once again, demonstrating that we are superior and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and our teachers and our directors are doing what they're supposed to be doing in educating our kids. Any questions on that slide?
Nope. And the big slide.
And then this one is, so we got one more until the big slide, so just kind
I
of,
like
Can I
that
go
big
back to-
side.
yeah, you want to go back?
I want to.
Whatever you would like.
I just wanted to kind of just point out on the slide that shows overall experiences, and then we started to
Oh,
divide
yeah.
it out with disabilities and non-disabilities. We did that for a reason, because when children come into kindergarten, they're coming in from multiple experiences. And we were seeing in our data where we were struggling. So we were like, okay, we need to really dig deeper to see what types of trainings we can give to our mainly traditional or Montessori teachers to help them have a better understanding of differentiation and how to service children with those IEPs before they can continue to move up. We have been in discussion with some private providers to also include them into this, some of this training, as part of our MOU with them. To see if we can build that, because there was a big differentiation there.
Super.
And it's not the kids, it's what we're doing. So. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. Anytime you want to take over,
Thanks.
you. So this slide here just breaks down the data even further of whether they attended preschool for 1 year versus 2 years, and then breaks it out whether it was, like Director Brooks talked about, whether they had disability, non-disability identified, and just gives that data at a higher glance. As we can see there, the greens, the more preschool they attended, the higher the greens were. All right, and then the big slide that everybody was waiting on. All right, and if you want to talk about this slide here, so this talks about how we compare to the other urban 8s in demonstrating kindergarten readiness. And as you can see, CPS is the dark blue line, not the black line, but that dark blue line that does indicate higher going into school year 2025, that we are above the rest of the urban 8s in demonstrating kindergarten readiness. So I think that deserves another round of applause if we do that. Take one out of Superintendent Murphy's book there. But just a kudos to Director Brooks and her team. Looking at this data, we get to look at things from a financial side most of the time, and not really getting to see. One good thing about my role is I do get to team up with some of the directors and look at outcomes. And this is just one of those areas that highlights and remembers your why we're all here. It's getting the kids ready to succeed, and just remembering why we all do what we do, and not just getting delved into the day-to-day finances, but the overall mission of our district.
Yeah, I think it's very big news, and I get worried when people try to say, well, we shouldn't use that cohort. Well, you have to use cohorts that make sense. And you're talking about the same kind of, experiences kids have, the same challenges, the same diversity, the multiple languages, greater number of kids with particular learning challenges or whatever. It makes sense to have a cohort that has a similar population. But I think we have to also thank the folks that, the taxpayers that tax themselves more in order, because they believed an early start gives a chance, to a kid to get a leg up, especially our kids. And that's why that subsidy is so important. And that's why it was so important at the beginning of this that the emphasis was on the families that would need the money necessarily, because there was great talk about everybody gets this, everybody gets the same. It was targeted especially. I think that's important. That's called equity. And the community has just been great about the preschool, and it is one of the things that makes us very proud as a community. Jim, anything?
What's the black line at the top?
That's all of Ohio, if I'm correct.
And that includes urban, suburban, and rural. And then it looks like Columbus is doing pretty well with us.
Yes.
They should be, yes.
And do they have public preschool as well in Columbus?
I believe most of Columbus is under the state grant, the ECE.
So they have public funding.
Yeah.
You good?
And then the final slide to close this out. Just as we talked.
Can we go back to that? 'Cause
Yeah,
that
please.
brings up a good question.
Mention it.
Because I do know Dayton is also
Working on this.
working on, they have like what we have with expansion dollars, it's taxpayer dollars.
And that's new.
New for them?
They actually
That's pretty-
started about the same time. we
Same
did.
time. I think they've done something about the organizing it, the private group a little bit more,
More differently, but yes,
but they're mostly the public.
but they're very close to us, so.
I love it.
in location.
And also, have you calculated the negative impact on all these numbers that's going to happen because you're going to 0.6?
Boy, that, yeah.
I haven't done the ROI on that yet, but I can.
Impressed. I have a plan. and
Vera
that plan,
always
you
has
will
a
see
plan.
growth. I will promise you will see more growth even next year.
That's the spirit.
Right?
No personnel discussion in here, Mr. Crossett.
It was a mathematical number, of course.
I'm always on call.
Question.
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Tarina. I'm a parent, and I love to see the growth. This is amazing for our preschools, correct? And I wanted to piggyback on your comment and said it's not the kids, it's us, it's the work, which is true, and the teachers and educators. But as a parent that I sit here, I know parents are supporting their teachers, right?
Absolutely.
They're supporting the work. So I want to make sure we give acknowledgement to them, but also I want to know, are you able to range that that engagement that parents are committed to, right? Because I've seen the results of kindergarten, they do well, and then first grade, it starts to drop down. So how are we keeping them involved right now? What can we do to keep that momentum going?
I'm so glad you brought that up, and then I apologize that I left that.
Yeah, I was
out
like, hold on.
because it begins with the families, it begins with the parents. We do keep documentation, of our parent engagement, and I can start to put that together in a more formal form. But in all of our locations, we have our monthly meetings that parents give input of what they want to learn about, what resources might be needed that they learn about. And our family service assistants then hold those monthly meetings. And what's been exciting over the last year or so, and we've seen more growth and participation, is instead of schools doing it in isolation, we've kind of gone we're moving towards more of the corridor model, that we've grouped different schools together for these meetings, and it's exciting to see parents from their kids might go to different locations or schools, but yet they're engaging with each other and they're supporting each other. So I will be happy to put, how many contacts we make and things like that, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
But the parents are a vital part of this.
Awesome, thank you. And I just think it's good to have that in the meetings too.
Yes.
Just like to have their reflection and representation here too as well.
Right.
So thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
To say something budget-wise, I am concerned about any cuts, and I know there have been some proposed regarding the family service assistance. And I'm concerned about that, but if you all can be reassuring to us, not now,
Well,
but
I can reassure you to this point that my department and my leadership, my little leadership team.
yes,
We have been brainstorming and getting input from our team, our extended team. So we are also reorganizing in a way to make sure that those services do not lapse,
okay,
that everything is taken care of. We're looking at how to do quality work, but maybe just in a different way.
thank
Is that a
you.
good answer? Yeah. And so we will still be providing,
It-
our goal is to provide as many services as possible in the schoolhouse, in the buildings.
Returning it to the schools. Jim?
Would it be helpful at this moment to have a little more description of what it means to be at the saturation point? Isn't that related to parents? Or not?
That's demographics.
Well, I think that, doesn't the saturation report, the saturation point is about not just the number of kids that are available, but also the number of families that are actually interested in sending their kids to preschool. There's a component to that, correct, or not?
Well, that is the saturation point, yes, the number of kids, and also in the most conservative county over, I don't know how many, 85 years, Hamilton County, the number of folks that actually believe that they don't want to send their kids yet to preschool, or they do it at home, in-home, with family. It's the saturation point. There's some really old studies about it when we started, and that's what was remarkable when we got up to like 2000 or something, and that's when Yeah. So that would be good to find out. As a matter of fact, a lot of the census stuff, we need to have better numbers as we are planning schools and what have you. But that would be great to look at that. I agree.
Especially with the strategic plan moment we have now.
Yeah, well, the demographics, I'm sure, are going to be part of that, and that, particularly in the preschool piece, might be helpful. Any other preschool information, sir?
Just one more quick slide.
Go for it.
To kind of demonstrate the component of why they were tracking the disability and the special education.
Yes, please.
identification. Just seeing the rising number over the last few years, and still on track to keep rising. And just wanted to bring point and bring light to that. Just call that out.
Yes, expensive.
And please
Two.
know that that date is, of that number, the last number is May 8th. They are still evaluating and identifying children, and they will throughout the summer.
Thank you.
That's it for preschool.
I appreciate it. All right, continue.
Rob, just a quick thing, we do have one CRA.
CRA, do it.
One, couple slides down. 7,500 square foot of commercial office space, 8 residential units. Not a huge CRA, but every dollar helps.
That's right.
So that will be added.
We just wish that the city and everybody would invest more in housing, especially for families.
Yes, family housing would be nice.
Because we're also in the process of losing many of our families because of housing changes, as well as policies that are not looking for families to move into the city.
Next, Mr. Ashley is going to talk about the required resolution that'll be
Please.
Monday as far as accepting the amounts and tax rates for the county. This will be formality, but Kevin, if you want to jump in there.
Hit it.
So what the county does, the County Budget Commission takes our tax budget that we submitted in January, as well as all of their calculations, reassessments. They actually, in their notation, mentioned they use a percentage based on collections. So again, this is the 100% that they calculate, and then they estimate it based on a percentage. I actually sent this resolution to Rob, because it's in the board docs for Monday, but I
Okay.
don't think it's in there for today. Interestingly, so all of these numbers came from the county once they approved it, and then we have to the board has to certify that back to them. So in putting the resolution together, dropping the numbers compared to last year, they're almost identical.
Really?
If you look at them. And that's because we didn't have a reappraisal cycle, there's some board of revision items that would have happened, but again, using an estimate. So if
Remember, this is property tax reform. These numbers are by design, not to change.
Absolutely.
And they also add a caveat that it may not include all of the tax reform measures, so as they learn and do their final assessments for next calendar.
It could go down.
It could change. The one thing I would point out on
Or
the
change.
third page, so this details out each levy and how much is expected for the tax year as well as the fiscal year, so that's the difference in the two amounts. But on the third page, it details our emergency levies, and they obviously did update the preschool levy, the partial preschool levy, the full levy that was approved from a 5-year to a 10-year period. So in the middle there, you would see that's updated. But again, no change to the amounts, simply recognizing that it has a 10-year cycle now. So again, that'll be on the board agenda for Monday. Once it's certified, we send a certified copy back to the county, which I think is due the 28th, so we have to make sure we do that ahead of time.
Do we know if that is a part of the business, or is it part of the consent agenda?
I believe it's a separate item.
Good, okay. It really should be for the benefit of the public.
We
Okay,
have to have a separate.
that would be great. Thank you. If not, we'll make sure that it is. I would think President Craig would do that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's listed as a separate item.
Excellent.
So I think that's all I have on that. It's kind of on our agenda today is two separate things, but it's accepting
It's
the
a se-
rates, accepting the amounts, certifying them back to the county. It's one resolution.
And when we get to that, Treasurer, you're going to present what that all means?
Yes.
All right.
Hopefully I'll do as good a job as Mr. Ashley.
I don't know, I wouldn't count on it.
I mean, I guess I could make him come and sit through Monday's
I
meeting.
know.
Is it,
No punishment, no punishment.
is it before or after? the budget
Exactly.
update on
It's,
the agenda?
it's the end of the meeting. We're going to do this.
That's why
7 hours later.
That's why we don't put these things in the consent agenda, right?
That's all right.
Okay.
Continue.
I think next item is the budget update.
Yes, tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
And we'll try to do the whole agenda and maybe return to some more specifics about the budget, if you don't mind. But give us kind of an overview of where we are.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, it's kind of late breaking news. So obviously, luckily superintendent's here. Luckily, Mr. Gollahue's here. Yeah, we've been working hard on the budget for quite some time. We're happy to bring kind of a balanced proposal to the board on Monday. As we were thinking about this, trying not to kind of duplicate presentations, but there'll be obviously some of that. Rob, if you go forward, I'm just going to keep hammering on this until you tell me not to. But part of this is to remind folks that our budget situation was something that was done to us. This was done to us by the state, and we need to remember that at all times. And, we can talk about the 3 driving factors, which I will talk about ad nauseum, but just remember inflation rates continue to be adjusted upward due to the rise in fuel cost. And as long as gas and fuel costs are where they're at, you're going to expect to see the cost of everything that we purchase, which is quite extensive, continue to rise. Next slide, Rob. Wanted to bring out the forecast summary to just remind folks for this conversation and the next conversation. We are anticipating flat revenues for the next 5 years, roughly flat. We are able to forecast flat expenditures for the next 5 years because the board has committed to passing budgets that meet our revenues. If that wasn't the case, this graph would look a lot uglier. Our cash balance would quickly dip below 0 and would be problematic. So reminder of that thing. If you go to the next slide, Rob, a couple of these slides I actually used in a presentation a couple of weeks ago, but just wanted to drill into where property tax revenue really looks like. And you can see historically the benefit of reappraisal in the 20 mil floor. You can see the ups and kind of the slight downs from board revisions, and then there's some small ups for new construction, and then you see going forward how that just flattens out. And if you hit the next slide, Rob, see our state aid over the same time period actually decreases slightly. So the state continues to invest less and less in our students and expects our local community to come up more and more. So. All of that said, just to set the stage for what is a difficult budget conversation. Next. Also wanted to bring these graphs back. I think these are influential from a very high perspective of where the money goes. And so you can see, over time, I think central office percentage continues to decrease as a percentage of the budget. Obviously school-based chunk of the budget increases and school support increases. School support, a lot of that is our students with disabilities, those sort of things, those sort of supports for students. I think that's a trend we all recognize. That's important to say. And then if you hit the next slide, Rob, you can.
Oh, Mr. Crossett.
Go back.
Yeah, that one. Does this include just the money that we spend on our own district, or does it include money that we spend for transportation for the non-publics and that sort of thing?
Yeah, transportation for non-publics is built in there.
It's built in there.
Yeah, it's built in there. That's a whole nother conversation of the fact that we are for the most part, we are the transportation provider for our entire district, regardless of where students choose to go to school. We provide a lot of special ed services. As Director Brooks said, we provide diagnostic services that are things that we do for everybody. So part of Cincinnati Public Schools is being this overall school district for the entire area that we cover. All right, so Rob, one more, and just to point this out again, this is an interesting thing about, we break down instructional spend, where it goes. You can see, general ed obviously should be the biggest part, but you can see over time, the increase in spending on students with disabilities, the increase on spending for English language learners, and historically an increase in career tech. Career tech's kind of flattened off a little bit, but you can see it. You can see a jump over that long period. So again, just to set a stage for where our budget lives, how it looks, what the cost drivers are.
Just a general comment about the size or proportion that is represented by central office. There is a community bias about spending any money any place besides schools. And I think it's a good bias. And it goes all the way back. It's part of Hamilton County. It's part of Southwestern Ohio. It's anti-bias about bureaucracy. And it's very important that we recognize that where central office was a few superintendents ago versus where it got over time, kind of in the last post-Ronan era, it's been expanding. And so it makes perfect sense to be thinking that there would be reductions in central office, especially though, if we are talking about putting things back to the schools or being a little bit more kind of actual discreet about what is being spent where. So I think that preparing ourselves for the public, it makes sense that the public will be more inclined to believe that money is being spent and work is being done, and that the schools are being held accountable. Because if you're going to be putting more resources there, you're going to be telling the schools they have to deliver. There's no place to hide. There's nobody at central office you can say was supposed to be looking at something. This is, and I think this is a bit of a shift. And I won't say a correction yet, because I don't know that it's a correction, but I do think that it's an end of the trending through at least 3 different superintendents, not the current one, but 3 since Ms. Ronan. So this is hard.
So thank you for that.
Really good people are not going to have jobs.
Yes. Thank you for that. All right,
Good.
Rob. So one thing I did want to drill into a little bit, because this is important for Monday.
Okay.
This is our forecast summary. You can see what we're projecting our revenue for, and I think you asked this very specifically. Does our revenue forecast match our budget target? And the answer to that is yes. If you hit the next slide, Rob. However, administration would recommend
Good.
that we increase the revenue target for next year. And so recently we've been approached by the group that we actually we actually own some Wi-Fi spectrum. That's one of the things the district owns, kind of given out by the federal government. We've been leasing it. We've been offered the opportunity to sell that to the company that leases to us. So we recommend that the board move forward with that. We put in a very conservative estimate of $2.3 million in revenue for next year. That is very conservative, I think, but that helps us. But that if the board is willing to move forward with that, that would increase our revenue target by $2.3 million, which would make the new budget target $630.2 million.
And the last budget, there was a later change in the target. It makes sense. These targets are created rightfully so, and actually by resolution, we have to live by these targets. But the last budget or so, we made those kinds of changes and adjustments. It makes sense. It makes sense. Have been operating at least for 4 years now on the scarcity mentality. And you cannot keep delivering a quality product operating from scarcity. And we have somehow been able to do it through, a great effort and a number of changes and restructuring. There've been a number of departments that have been restructured. There's whole kinds of quality improvement stuff that's been going on and on and on and on. So this is, it makes sense that you've added a couple more million.
Yeah. This was a good,
Is that when
this was a good
the
thing.
plus sign idea in the big room
I
happened?
think the plus side. Okay. So we wanted to bring that obviously first to finance committee. So you would kind of see that first. That was a change from everything we've discussed. It's kind of a late change. So that was good. If you keep going, Rob.
Tell us more, yeah.
Yeah, that just does. I know we've talked a lot about the 155 million. And that's, yes, sir.
There was a $10 million to $11 million increase in billings that you talked about at the beginning. Does that help this one?
We'll see how it comes in.
You're
Yeah,
not banking on it yet.
not banking on it yet.
Can't yet.
It's potential.
Yeah. The money will come in. It depends on where it comes in. There are a lot of things that are built into the revenue. We've built this year's budget on sale of property. We haven't actualized that yet. So
I get
There
it.
has to be some cushion. There has to be,
Some
we are just too close.
I am probably a little too conservative, but also I understand.
supposed to be.
But
I think
also
it's the job
I
description.
understand the consequence of being wrong, and the consequence of being wrong is what keeps me up at night.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
But yes, the answer is yes, but
Yes, I would love to find additional revenues, and we continue to look under the rocks where we can. But yeah, so if you remember, we talked about this 155 million being what was left. That's now 157.7 million. So you'll see that in the presentation. And so I just want to clear it up because people are going to be looking for, where's the 155?
well,
Now it's
that's
at
where you left
157.
us, and that's where
Yes.
you left the public. So
Yep.
you have to, the message, the numbers have to jive.
Yep.
And people have received so many documents, and so many very specific documents have been on board docs, that adjustments to any of those documents have to be able to be explained. Or people are coming in thinking something's cut, something's not cut, something's in the budget, something's not in the budget. So we appreciate the specificity has been remarkable. And I know we all appreciate it, but you have to kind of keep the same terminology or confusion happens.
Yes, it is.
So now it's 157, 7.
157.7, yes. It is hard to stay, I think, dedicated to one model. I think every year, we start with one model and we test the model out, and then we're like, well, that didn't
Well-
work well, or that made sense to us, but didn't make sense to the public, or vice versa. So budget is always a learning process from both sides. So keep going, Rob. I would just say this slide is important. I think we said it before. We went down the pathways model, 3 pathways. None of those pathways gave us a result that wouldn't be, long-term detrimental to the district. But I will say, the pathways were good because it made us consider a lot of different things. And I can tell you, superintendent can tell you, we went through a lot of different things that we considered, talked about, discarded, even costed out and said, oh no, or ideas that we said, yeah, this is great. And then we talked to more people and said, yeah, that's not going to fly. So there's a lot of deliberation on the administrative side, several meetings a week to get to where we're going to end on Friday. So but just important. And I think, Ms. Bolton, as you said, this is successive years of budget reductions, and your options just get, when you're in this kind of deficit, era, it's, your options get more and more limited. There are levers you could pull last year. There are one-time things you could do that then are no longer one-time things. There are reductions you make where things are at the bone in some areas.
I think on the pathway, the board discussion 3 meetings ago, was the idea that the pathways unilaterally, or just one of them, doesn't get you. But I think the board, and it looked like we were being indecisive, but I think we were actually being kind of smart. All of this that you're presenting to us, I think all 3 pathways are represented in some way or another, whether it's the pre-COVID kinds of numbers, at least you kind of go back to figure out where the growth has been, or partners picking up stuff, or us, most importantly, the biggest thrust has been moving efforts to the schools, which again includes accountability. So I think there was a mix, but if it was helpful, that's great.
Yeah, I don't think without going down the pathways, we wouldn't have had the broad range of options that were considered.
There you go.
Okay. So it was an important exercise, and we never came to, okay, here's the pathway that works.
Yeah.
And Superintendent Murphy early on was like, we're going to have a blend. I mean, she saw that really early in discussions, and so that was good.
I think it was a member MAP that first said about the merge them
Member Mapp, I think, also
at the
recommended it.
public meeting, or the full board meeting. Yeah, it's great. Okay.
All right, keep going around. So this is interesting. Mr. Golly, if you want to, this was kind of your slide. If you want to jump in, and because I like how you phrased it. Okay.
I think we'll say some of it for Monday, but I mean the gist essentially is as we move through that process from what we talked about at the last board meeting to this board meeting and what will be presented on Monday, and what we're seeing some of today, was, kind of what we call a guiding principle in terms of how we were looking at priorities and things that we were looking at, how we were making decisions around the 155 million and where all that looked at. So, the short version that I like to summarize it as is, prioritizing first how to get the students here, right? So in order, we have to get them here, provide them an education and teaching and teachers, moving through core curriculum, adding on those supports that incentivize them and make them have maximizing student outcomes, and then through efficiency and streamlining our operations. So it's kind of that built our priority that we use to guide as a principal how we were working through the rest of these numbers.
See, I like how he says it. So
I think that's very strong.
get them there, give them a teacher, give them curriculum, give them supports, and then.
And so
finish
from
up
that
the operation.
157 minus how much transportation's costing?
Transportation was only about another fourth. It was there. Yeah, the big contract was Metro. I mean, a lot of transportation we put in the legal requirements, and because it's legally required, you transport K to 8 students. But the Metro contract was.
And so that needs to be said, particularly that the transportation piece, we already accounted for Yellow Bus in what we already voted on. And and I guess there's other stuff too, for example, some of the extraneous sorts of travel, but.
But yeah, definitely the Metro.
You got
contract
Metro,
was-
you might have
was one
also
of the ones-
special needs stuff. I'm not sure if all that Yellow Bus stuff was, and that's hideously expensive.
Special needs is very expensive, but it's also legally required.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying that there have been years when it was costing as much to transport our special needs kids as it was the rest of the population in elementary.
Yeah.
It's because it is what it is, and it has been. So as long as that's all part of what we already voted on, that would be great.
Yeah, we can do kind of a quick deep dive.
Just
into
make
all the
sure that
transportation
all of
items.
it's
all of it's
done.
there.
Yeah, I've
Member
done a
Armbruster?
lot of deep dives on these spreadsheets.
Oh, look, someone.
And my understanding is that it is just the Metro and then athletics transportation that has not previously been approved. So those are the two outstanding that we would then have to approve on Monday.
That'd be great.
Everything else is accounted for, based
And
on my deep dive.
Thank you.
I would look at field trips.
So that's actually a great conversation. That is that is a great conversation to have. I think
I would look at your field trips because we already are inadequate in that for our kids.
Yeah.
And, but athletics, certainly the artistic children get the same coverage as our athletes should and do, or academic competition, or the children going to, right now, some of our high school class grades are paid for privately to go to the Holocaust and Humanities Center, not paid for by us. So I would ask you to look in transportation, that all aspects that are still left out there. Unless you have decided to not have field trips for preschool, which I saw as a cut.
That is out of the general fund. We still will have funding through grants to support some.
Excellent point, because there are also cuts that also say will be picked up by grants.
Yes.
And that shows a lot, and this is my bias, as a person that was here forever, I do not like to see any cuts in the arts, because people are viewing it as some sort of enrichment instead of a full educational complement, so if we can real be sure, I don't know that there's going to be a vote on Monday. I think there's some concern that we should have a vote, and if you presenting this big plan to us, maybe we, as President Craig has mentioned, maybe something from the floor could come, but we also are going to be missing at least one member on Monday night, who would almost be a guaranteed vote for an administrative recommendation. So I think that's something to take into consideration. But the presentation of this plan for the public and everybody, but know then that we'd have to wait till the first meeting in June to vote. So keep telling us about this plan. We appreciate you. Jim, go
I
ahead.
think
I'm sorry.
Superintendent had something she wanted to say as well.
I just wanted to see if I can get a little clarification, because I am also supportive of the arts and athletics. All the extracurricular activities have a benefit to the whole educational outcome.
Yeah.
Positive educational outcomes. Are those things, Mr. Gollihue, included in supports in this priorities?
Yes, for the most part, they would be, yes, they would be included in that supports tier.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
The only thing I was going to
Superintendent?
mention, Board Member Armbruster already did, and that was around where we already accounted for transportation and conversation we had around Metro. Extracurriculars in particular is what I was going to hit upon, but she took care of that. The other thing that we'll have to do a better job of explaining on Monday is some of the things that you might see in categories that we're choosing not to fund are requests that came from departments for the first time. So not really technically a cut, based on how we traditionally think about cuts. So we'll have to be very careful about how we explain that.
Diving deeply into this, at least this most recent documents, are the documents about contracts. And there are contracts that are not being recommended that I think are and could be problematic as to getting full board support. And so we might be wanting to review that as well, since it's new. I mean, and since it's being published, now people are aware that it's going to be happening. So that might be part of the crowd. There might be some wisdom to voting on the same night that it's presented, because if you wait, it begins to be problematic, and I'm sure that's part of the thinking. But also, if we're presenting on the same night we're voting, that will also be problematic to the community, because they'll say, oh, wow, look, after all this talk, you started in January, and now we're going to see what the presentation is, even though we've done, what's the percent of the budget we've already adopted? 80%.
80 of it,
I
yeah.
mean, but it's that, we knew it was the last 20 that was gonna be the issue, but this is a communication issue, and this is a political issue, and about maintaining trust too. So I know you guys have to kind of figure that out. I know President Craig and Vice President Moffett will be helping you with that, but
But I mean, I think that's a good point. A lot of the budget's been approved, but I think that strategically that was good because.
yes, absolutely.
It focused the debate on this last 20%, but that's where the debate, I think, needs to be. I did want to say a little bit about contracts. I think contracts has been the hardest part of this budget process. Just because of how our contracting works in the district, right? And so, obviously, everyone wants to look at a list of contracts. We're happy to provide it. It's a lot of work because you're working in 2 separate years. This is one of the things we talked about, changing how we do budget requests next year to make the data a little easier. But the basic requests are, say, I need $100,000 to do X, right? And I need 100, so we'll use field trips. I want $100,000 for field trips. Okay, that's what the budget request line looks like. Now, in any given year, that could be contracts with 20 different vendors, right? Depending on who you're going to use, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. And so, a lot of our contracts work, and thank you, Cody Hutchins, for doing a lot of this. Cody kind of spearheaded it, and then he, worked with the whole leadership team to try to get their pieces, because everyone manages their own chunk of the budget. But looking at this year's contract and then trying to extrapolate into what's next year's, and that's always difficult because sometimes there's a plan change of vendor, right? We use this vendor this year, they weren't great, we want to do someone different. It's hard to capture that in hypothetical. The other issue that I think is really struggling with are school-based contracts versus district-wide contracts. It's easy for us to look at district-wide contracts and say, hey, are we doing this or not? But we also have to remember that the schools have a lot of leeway at their level. They're given budgets, they're given a per pupil allocation to allocate. They're given also title. We're not really talking about title today, but we're also given title funds to allocate. Yeah. And the schools have a process working with the ILT and going through the LSDMC of how they're going to spend those funds. And we are. While we maintain compliance, we make sure they're compliant, we are more hands-off on how they actually choose because, we preserve that local school decision-making. And so sometimes when it's hard to roll all that back up is what I'm saying, and I know there are certain vendors that get more scrutiny than others, but sometimes it's hard to roll that back up. I know, sometimes our union partners, have a lot of, they have opinions on it, Central has opinions on it, but also the schools have opinion on it. So trying to get that right mix of what contracts are really in or out is tough to do. And it's really, as we talk about the budget, I don't know, theoretically but there's 2 sides to the budget, right? There's where is the district going to spend its money? What is the board going to approve us to spend in what dollars amount in what areas, right? That's kind of A. And then B is how do you operationalize that? And I think that operationalizing it comes into, is this a position? Is this a contractor? Is this insourced? Is this outsourced? Is this done, as one giant contract? Is it done for a bunch of little contracts to little vendors? Like there's a lot of pieces to operationalize the dollars. And part of this contract discussion is we're doing both of those things at the same time.
Well, and 4 years ago, we talked about the fact that it's a problem that we should be, the size of these, if you bring them together, should be RFP'd. Mm-hmm. And some of these contracts are purposely lower than they should be or are low, so we don't have to RFP. Or in the decentralization, sending stuff back to schools, then they want them to have discretion. But it's a problem, and I would just suggest that you look at the. I know there's some not determined yet, and there's some that are recommended and some that are not recommended. But I think a fine-tooth comb, again, I'm sure you already have done that. But I would hate to see such a big effort go down the tubes because there's some relatively small decision, but, sirens go off.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going, I'm sorry.
Fair enough, fair warning.
Just, I'm telling you, there's a couple there there's more than a couple.
Sounds like you could use some AI.
That's your new theme, isn't it? That's two meetings in a row you brought up.
But
AI, so like it.
I am serious. I mean,
Pitiful.
it seems like that there could be some component of trying to project, doing a projection of that could maybe be enhanced by some modeling, maybe. Maybe you're doing that already, but.
If AI can sit there and figure out the crowd coming in the room, that'd be great.
We can run all the hearing of the public people
Exactly.
through AI and know
That is the
exactly
way
what
to
they're going
do
to
it.
talk about, and
I'm gonna tell you.
we'll get there. So
It
No, I-
sounded silly, but I was
He
being
means
somewhat
it. I
serious.
mean,
No,
no,
I-
it's,
no, I
well,
think-
of course.
yeah, I
Think about it.
In all seriousness, yeah, there is some analysis to it for sure. We could do better. I know. Just thinking about just thinking about the Cal meeting too, and some of the things that that purchasing director Levins talked about with trying to really honor our local minority vendor commitments.
Yes.
and
Well,
those
it
sort of
is
things.
board policy.
Yes, that's a board policy and also get the best
So
bang for our buck.
I'd be looking at that for sure, because it's board policy. And it doesn't change because it's a different board. Unless we want to change it.
And then that's a different committee.
And that's a different committee.
Not this
And they're changing a lot, so you never know. Let's keep going.
Keep going. On the budget, I don't know, Superintendent, do you want to, anything you want to say on the budget pieces? You're good, all right. Going, so next slide, there are some
Yeah.
items that, that the administration looked at, and did not, they're not part of the recommendations, for reductions this year, so you can see that list.
And I think this should be emphasized for the public, as to not that we would choose them or anything like that, but they need to know the things that you've decided against, and might have to help figure out why or what have you.
And I think we would say that, we looked at pretty much every spend, every line item. We were going through kind of line by line, looking at things. And, we had, at one point, we had that, there's no bad ideas. So put everything out there, but then, through a process of analysis and discussion.
And some of our conversation was, what do you see the suburbans eliminate first, or what do they share when their levies are in danger? And they talk about transportation, athletics, extracurriculars, and we chose not to do that.
No, and because it has been the philosophy in all these years not to threaten, but to explain. But and over time, things that appear to be extraneous have become part of the core value of what we're offering. So it's just really hard. But I think the job that you all have done is remarkable.
Very difficult.
I would say, though, when you say eliminate band, well, there are cuts to bands. You didn't eliminate band, but you might want to look at some of the specific things, whether it's itinerant music teachers or guest artists or whatever. There are some specifics there with a broad stroke. You didn't do that, but you've had to pick and choose, but picking and choosing whether we are going to have Suzuki or not have Suzuki, or it's going to be during school, after school, or only for those who pay, or is it only going to be in particular schools? We've paid for this territory. My dad would always tell me, World War II guy, you don't pay for territory twice. So that's the other part of cutting anything. If you've already won that battle, whether it's field trips or whatever it is, it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
But you guys you get the money to do this, but I'm just saying, look very carefully. Even more so than you already have.
I agree. I mean, this is part of why this committee is great to get to do kind of a preview and
That's
get
right.
feedback, and then it helps us kind of sharpen Monday's presentation.
Do you have a question? Excuse me, do you have a question?
Yes, I'm
Okay, that's all right.
I mean,
That's okay.
we're voting.
That's all right.
So first, it's definitely overwhelming to see as a parent, right? And I know you stated like more in depth when it comes to the meeting on Monday, and we're definitely going to appreciate that. And when you go into depth, like to explain why these cuts were made, are you going to be able to also present maybe some alternatives? And for an example, you said proposal increase in class size. Are we going to have another student, maybe a para in that class? Like, how is this going to be like? Oh, these are things or not. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
'Cause I was losing it over here.
Don't worry.
Okay.
I
all
saw it.
right, thank you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
That slide can be improved.
So maybe we. Yeah. All right. So maybe we change the title on this slide.
Yes. Well, really, when we think about it, remember that we had vocabulary, you're okay. We had a vocabulary problem about high priority. That was probably an incorrect. So maybe some of the numbers people need to talk to some of the language people. I mean, I don't want to see any more bridges or anything, Jeremy, but going way back.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, let's make sure we're using the right vocabulary.
Yeah.
No, no.
Yes. But
I
it
know,
is
I
a good-
started to twitch too. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Yeah, and just, I mean, it's a great comment. To talk about class size, we looked elementary all the way up to 35.
Yeah, well, that would be really remarkably stupid to do that.
Which is, and you don't really see savings until we hit what, 28, 29, and it's like, ooh, that's it was an exercise to see where the savings come in, and at 28, 29 was something no one felt comfortable. Yeah, if there were savings at 26, okay, maybe that's further discussion, but
I think we budget already too much to the highest extreme or range of the CFT contract. And we've done that for year after year after year. And it is a flawed system. I'm mad at CFT for ever giving that kind of range, or the district ever engaging in that kind of contract negotiations about class size at all, because it isn't something that should be done district-wide. It does not make any sense. But I know that it's an easiest way to negotiate and to budget, but to me, that whole class size piece is very rough. And we could do so much better, I think. But I'm glad you didn't do what and you never were going to do that any more than you were ever going to say we're not going to have buses. Come on. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
I don't know, one more.
Because look what, not having buses, us having to put our 7th and 8th graders on Metro versus other people not having to put and actually making a state law that kept the other kids from having to ride Metro if they were 7th and 8th. That was specifically done to draw down our enrollment.
I mean, that would have been a tough pill to swallow.
Well, that's part of our problem in our enrollment in our middle schools. Because the other people leaving the elementary, they have a transportation to get to some charter school, and they don't have, that is a yellow bus, or it's a van. That was specifically done. Don't hurt the internal auditor.
Okay.
We need her. But keep going. Go ahead.
I think, again, these are all things that are done to us.
Exactly.
And we have to adjust. If you go to the next slide, Rob, this is the big grid of what's recommended, what's not recommended. And then
Yeah,
obviously-
this needs to, I have trouble, no other board member has trouble with the next two charts. I do, the budget breakdown update, administration's recommendation for a balanced budget. It's confusing to me. And then the recommended for funding versus not recommended. Obviously, you're gonna be spending the most time on, I would assume, those two.
I assume slide 15 will be where everyone stops and wants to have discussion on, so.
Yes. And
Yeah, I think slide 14, Jeremy, by all means, jump in. This is
Please.
your grid.
hit the grid.
So, yeah, I mean, from a readability aspect.
Yes.
I tried to simplify this slightly. So essentially, there's 4 sections to the chart, right?
Okay.
The first section in gray is basically where we started. It's just our target, the amounts of the original ask, and it captures what our new target is based on what Mike presented earlier, the 630.2 million, and then what our ask was over. So that's just where we started first stage. The next 3 sections are the more prominent parts that the green specifically are the things the board has already approved. That's the legal requirements and the compliance positions at the schools, both the central and the school-based.
And that's when we said no to the 70.
Correct.
Okay.
The recommended for funding, the blue section, is what you'll see on Monday that comprises the 157 million that we have left to spend. So that will be all the recommendations for how we believe we should spend the 157
Great.
million. And then finally, the peach section of the not recommended, those are the things that were not able to be included in the recommended list from the original ask. So, or trying to avoid the colloquial term, but reductions or cuts.
And there is going to be, or whatever, a list that takes care of this 58 million?
There is. So that would be on our next slide. This is a very small capture of those charts for the slide and presentation purposes. But the book that's linked to it provides the blown up, the full blown up version. But yes, each section essentially will now have one tab in the spreadsheet that provides the first tab will be with the green that matches the legal requirements. Oh, it is, but I'm sitting way back, sorry. The second sheet will match the blue column that provides a detailed list of everything that's included in the recommendation for the 157. And then the third column, or the third list, comprises an item by item of everything that is in the not recommended list to match the peach section of that 58 million.
And that's great. And that will be the list that, will be of great concern. But that list on the not recommended, that will be, is posted on, or available.
It is currently, the slides are currently posted. The budget book is currently shared with the board members. It is not
Okay.
publicly available yet.
And-
We're still completing some of the.
No, absolutely. And that's no problem there. And the budget book is different than the budget books that were shared at the last school board meeting. So these are new budget booklets.
This would represent just a singular comprehensive book now.
Okay, and it has the recommended and it has the not recommended,
Correct,
according to this chart.
correct.
Get balance back to the,
I think that that's really important because you're using the same kind of document, you're using the same kind of language, the same kind of, well, with some corrected vocabulary of some of the charts. But I think that's important to see something that takes this long. It's important to have the same language. Okay, good. Jim?
The 20 million that's in yellow, what is that again?
So this one will take a little more explanation once we get to it, but so these are the additional items outside of what we have as recommendations and not recommended that are itemized. There is a separate list of things that don't fit neatly into a reduction bucket. Like most things we could say ITM is going to eliminate a specific contract. That's a line reduction. The yellow items will be comprised of things that are more multilateral, multi-tiered across different things that they're not clean one line.
But they're also, but they're not recommended,
They
correct?
are recommendations.
Wait,
Sorry, using the term recommendation, maybe getting confused.
Are they blue?
They're
or
administration recommendations, but they're not recommended for funding, I think.
they're not
Yeah.
recommended for, so they'll be in the orange detail.
They're not
Yeah,
recommended.
got it. Okay.
It applies to both columns for balancing purposes.
And it's part of your total 58?
Correct. Correct.
It's part of the total 58.
Thanks for asking that.
I would just add it down straight, as an accountant.
I can fix it, well, we've
Well,
already posted, but we can
But
revise
you've
that.
kind of been ready to vote on this budget for several weeks. Because you are a can-do man, I tell you. I love it.
Might just be cleaner not to have it in that.
In both, yeah.
Or maybe on a file card next to something, or at our place.
I think we're always subject to overthinking.
No.
It does.
It's a tough crowd, it's 7 people.
It's never easy.
Rightfully so.
All right, Rob, if you'll keep going. I know
And here's the big,
we're getting close to the noon hours.
yes, we're gonna get done.
But this is what Jeremy was just talking about, the budget book. If you go one more, go one more, please, Rob. Next slide. I think this will be really useful. This is the school-based position table, and then obviously there's a link to that. But based on everything, this gives a lot of detail on what's
And
what the
we've seen
schools.
this before in its entirety.
This
School?
was shared with the board, I think, specifically. Yes. It's obvious. I think there's some updates from the last talk, last conversation, but gives you an idea of what each school has. So I think as we're going to talk about reductions for several hours probably, to come back to this to show what resources each school has under the proposed budget. Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Thank you. Is there a link available? I know you said board docs, but for parents to be able to see this, parents, families, community, whoever may want to see this before the meeting? This position table right here, the school-based position table.
Typically, these data addendum parts that have the full breakdown of everything are they become live at the meeting or before the meeting on Monday.
So right before?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right then. And it's on board doc, so it wouldn't be anywhere else that we can look for the information. I don't know why I got stuck like that. Correct. Okay.
I would say that that's part of that earlier conversation or comment that we kind of made. The administration, first of all, this budget process has been accelerated. It is almost a month and a half faster than it's supposed to be because of our strategic plan and because of a looming levy discussion. We're not talking about trying to pass it June 30th, we're trying to pass it May 30th, let's say, or thereabouts. Normally, much of this, the public, normally, if it's not budget stuff or it's not a work in progress, when something goes on board docs for the board, it is also available to the public. And that's part of the issue here right now, because this is available or will be available to the board, but it will cause an issue for the community that if all this very specific stuff is shared moments before the meeting, and then we vote. I mean, more and more, it's looking less and less like we can vote on Monday, not because we may not be ready or that, and wonderfully, the administration's got something to propose. We also want to be able to have the community feel as though they had pretty much knowledge. And I think the amount of knowledge that's already been out there is phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree
But,
with
but,
you.
oh, let me finish.
sorry.
I think that this group, the administration and the board leadership has to figure out how they want to approach this regarding a vote and how much is shared, when it's shared. We are getting this preliminary opportunity here. And so all of this, we have to do all of our business in public. But the public also has a right to be informed early enough that they have the right to advocate, even though that certainly makes more difficult what people have to do or not do. So this recommended for funding versus not recommended, and all these other, the school position the table that you just mentioned, all of that is available on board docs, but whether or not all of it's available at this time for the public, that's the issue. And is it going to be ready on Friday afternoon, close of business, or the weekend, or Monday during the board day or board meeting? Then you all have to decide that, and the president will have to help you decide what you want to do about that.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that, Board Member Bolton. I just wanted to make sure that it's out there, right? Transparency
absolutely.
is everything. And I know a lot of parents can't even navigate board docs, let alone. So I just want to make sure that we're really making sure that it's out there. And I know that you are, and I'm not saying not. I'm just saying, speaking from that point of lens.
Well,
That's all.
and you don't have to even be from the parent perspective. We're elected officials, and that should be our same perspective.
Thank you.
Because that's who we're representing. Be they parents, or they don't have kids, or they taxpayers versus whoever. So no, you're not voicing a parent-only view. You're voicing where we are, because this work has to be done publicly.
Thank you for that.
Continue.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the wrap up of the budget section.
Can we look also, before we kind of close out this issue, and I know we've done this before a million times, but the in student enrollment and capacity, there were 66 some schools on that chart that's already been shared. And by the way, that chart that does have all the positions for the schools, what will be there, what won't be there. And then it also has a couple of columns about the enrollment and the building capacity. That's a gem. That is fantastic. That is great. I love that. It was like, I think as I said some years ago, the cost of transportation by school was the Rosetta Stone about 5 years ago that made us start making all kinds of different changes. This is a Rosetta Stone that helps us a great deal. But there's 66 schools. There are a number of schools that are less than 75% capacity. There are a number of schools that are less than 55%. And I think that I would hope that we will be talking about that, especially is some of the things you decided not to do. You have to start, I think, as President Craig mentioned, if we have some issues of capacity, we have to begin to tell people early on that that's a problem. You decided maybe not to address it yet by merging these lower enrolled schools, but it needs to come to the public as something to be thinking about, because you're going to have great difficulty having a levy. And if somebody that doesn't want to support the levy will say, well, yeah, but you've got 6 schools that are less than 50% utilized, or some of them it's worse than that. So this is kind of another kind of political piece as well. And have we really done the hard stuff? Well, of course we have, but this is the stuff we have to be ready to say. Jim?
Yeah, to that point, I think if it's possible on this chart to add some footnotes. For example, like Woodward has a lot of career tech space. I think Vine Street has a lot of disability classrooms. those are good explanations as to why the capacity isn't what it is, because it's used for a good purpose, but in a legally required purpose, but it affects the capacity. And I think the more we can head off some of those schools with explanations proactively would be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think as we've had capacity discussions, there's like the state capacity, which is, you know, your occupancy, your FMP capacity. And then there's the real capacity, which is different. I think absolutely career tech. Career tech takes a lot more space a lot of times, you know, than traditional classrooms. You know, students with disability classrooms have a lot less kids. And so, you know, it's 8 kids versus 25 in a room.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think one of the things that, yeah, we certainly have to talk about CPS capacity and how we define it. I think, you know, one of the advices I've gotten from some of the people that I work with is that we should very explicitly define what CPS capacity means. And get ahead of, I think, eventually the state's gonna come around to landing back on the sale or transfer property thing. I mean, they've been on that for years. It never quite gets enough support, but it's just a matter of time. And so getting in front of that narrative, I think for Ms. Bolton's purpose as well, if people are saying, hey, why do you have a school with, you know, 40% capacity, you know, have you done these things? And the state trend, obviously, you know, we don't live in a vacuum. If you do any search, you see that, you know, Cleveland this year
Shutting down a third of their schools.
shut down a third of their schools. Columbus did something similar. You know, Columbus is struggling. They proposed a lot, but they're not actualizing a lot of their reductions, is what I'm hearing. But
Yeah, and the thing to be aware there is that dating back to the FMP, not quite 20 years ago, but definitely 16 years ago, the state said that we would only have 28,000 kids, and that they told us exactly how many schools we had to have, and we actually had to have more, and we had to foot that bill ourselves. So the state is always going to screw it up. They're going to screw the pooch. It's a given. But yeah, we have to be able visually and intellectually show that we have behaved in a fiscally responsible way. I mean, all the awards don't mean as much as if somebody's looking at something and they see maybe one school has a bad graduation rate or another school only has 35% occupancy. I mean, because out there in the political whatever, it only takes one, as we've learned time and time again recently, take one bad fact that then creates the narrative. So you got to get rid of bad facts.
I was on an Ohio 8 call this morning, and we were talking about this very thing, and the legislators were talking about this a couple of years ago, and we made moves that we felt we needed to make. The board supported, but they are concerned that this is creeping back into some of the bills. And so we had conversations about who's doing what as well today. And so one is still not knowing how the state is defining what capacity needs or should look like. So that's a little bit challenging. But it actually came up in the principals meeting yesterday, the specific question, are we gonna close any buildings? And I did tell them that the proposal right now does not include that right now. So we'll begin to start to work on that a little bit. And the other thing I wanted to say, Board Member Bolton, I appreciate the kudos about the document. And I am grateful for the entire team in this budget process with Mike and I, because all of the ideas that we've had to generate and work through, Jeremy is the brains behind the documents and is able to
Found that ad
navigate
hoc.
the documents. And so I deeply appreciate that, because then he comes back the next day, superintendent, look at this. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what we talked about. So I'm super appreciative of the entire team. But in this case, these documents you are giving some kudos to, that's Jeremy's brain on the paper.
It's great. It's great. The clarity is very important. Very important. Any last, as we run a little bit over?
could we, mean, I don't know how long we want to go over.
Go
but,
ahead.
One of the items on the agenda talked about administrative suggestions for meeting the district's future financial needs. If I could have maybe 10 minutes to go through that
Please.
chunk of the.
I appreciate it, and I know that you have previously shared with us the possible kinds of dollars that will be needed and how that translates into various levy type
Yep.
requests. I know you've done that, so this will be a kind of a second round or a third round. Please do.
Yes, I'll try to go quick. Rob,
No,
start on
no, it's
slide,
very
start on
important.
slide 47, if you don't mind. Other slide deck, sorry. I know, we did two.
Anybody else wants this saltwater taffy? I've had like 3 of them. Actually, I got that, I can't say the name because Michelle is here, but I got them at Sam's. Well, I got it because it's the same brand I usually get when I would go to Florida, so I think I have 7,000 pieces of it. Yeah, no more sugar, no more sugar.
Right,
Go for it.
we're gonna limit her sugar intake.
Rob announced it, but yeah,
Okay.
please do. Let's do
Okay.
this and then we'll go there. For sure, Michelle.
Okay, so as bad as the budget has been this year, I think we also have to recognize it's not getting better. And so looking at 28 and 29, just to be completely honest, look at our change in revenues versus known expense increases. And these are the minimum known expense increases. We're gonna have to make an additional $6.3 million of reductions in 28. And on top of that, an additional $7.9 million reductions in 29. And that is without doing one new thing, right? So this is without doing one new thing. And so we need to be cognizant that as painful as this year is, we are in a pattern of this. If you go to the next slide, Rob.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Come back a little bit. So is the 6.3 million, is that what you're considering to be the 3% inflation?
It's step increases plus 3% inflation on our purchase services, I should say that.
3% inflation could be another 10 million, 12 million?
No, the 3.3 million is 3% on what we would consider purchase services and supplies. So when you break the budget down, I grabbed,
All right, so you're looking at a total of 10 million. So
you're looking at, basically $9.3 million in new. We think we're gonna get $3 million in new revenue. But that means the net is we have to cut 6.3.
I bet the 10 million is even low. At
Yeah.
9.3 million, that could even be a little bit low.
Again, this is best case scenario.
Best case scenario, okay.
And this is not doing one new thing for the strategic
This is
plan.
before
So
gas
this is
prices.
Your best case scenario.
Yeah, this is not doing one new thing. This is
Before we
not.
decided to have war with Iran.
I mean, this assumes we don't start any other wars.
Well,
You never know. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, and these are a lot of tough calls. If as tough as this year's reductions are, this cuts even deeper into what we're already struggling to fund. So I want to put that out there. I also wanted to, if you go to the next slide, Rob, Moody's Investment Services put out kind of a sector comment, which they do from time to time about Ohio schools, and said there's a lot more risk in getting levies approved. They recognize that property taxes will restrain revenue growth, and they really spent some time, and I in your packets you have the comment there. They really spent some time talking about governance and how important really the board's role in the administration, really the board's role in governance is in how schools are going to stay solvent over the next few years. So if Moody's paying attention to the school funding picture, right. That means there's concerns, and I think, again, as we talk about, when we pay off the FMP, the concept is we're going to want to borrow new money. We want to do that at the most favorable rates possible with the highest rating possible. And so these next couple years are also critical to having a strong borrowing position for the next round of whatever we choose to do. So, next slide, Rob. So thank you, Mr. Crosser, for making me do this. I love this slide, but this looks at, if we go back to 2022 and we took our expenditures and we compared them to the same amount growing at inflation. You know, you see we're pretty even until we get to 27, and then we get a gap, and that gap continues to grow. And what we're saying to everyone is, our revenues aren't even keeping pace of inflation. You know, and that gap compounds, and so it's just a cut mentality. Also, next slide. Wanted to do a recap of what happened.
I'm sorry I made you do that.
No,
Nobody wants to look at that.
No,
You're
we have
sorry,
to.
but I've gotten a lot of traction out of that graph, to be honest.
Absolutely.
It's powerful to watch, to say, you know,
It's good.
you know, a lot of people talk about school funding, state legislature, school funding, and this net thing. We've given you more dollars than ever before, right? They'll say that 100 times. We put more money in K-12, but if you're not keeping up with inflation, you're not, real dollars, you're not. And that's a thing to talk about.
Or if we lose $20-some million because they don't do fair funding formula and finish it out, which was, according to the steering committee, we lost $27 million because they didn't continue fair funding.
Sounds about right. Fair funding formula is no longer fair.
That's right.
It's no longer
It hardly
fair.
exists.
It's really, I guess you could say it's also no longer funding us.
There you go.
But, you know, it's 150 plus million a year, so. So May ballot was not kind to school districts. You know, about a third passed. Going back a year, about 2/3 passed. So not a great climate. I will say there were more new money levies on than traditional, but you can see, you know, only a third of new property tax levies passed and only 21% of new income tax levies passed. So
Would it be interesting to have a chart to show that if we had fair school funding, that we wouldn't need to have a levy? Would that be a chart with?
Oh, yeah.
yes, I think that's a good chart.
Or
taking that
showing
chart?
how if,
I keep giving you charts.
No, that's a good chart.
no, it's, we
I
have
don't want to be
to,
accused of making more work.
no, we have to show, to Mike's start from the whole presentation, is that other people are causing us this, and they're doing it purposely. They're not just doing it because they have an interesting idea. This is a to kill public schools.
So this was not a good election. Sometimes primaries aren't good elections anyway, depending on who's on the primary, but was not a good election for schools. Just as a reminder, on the next slide, you know, the opportunity to get money to affect November 26th is our opportunity to get money that would impact fiscal year 28. Even waiting until May of 27 then pushes you into fiscal year 29. Which means another year of very, very tough budgets. Keep going, Rob. I will bring these back. These were our sizing scenarios. If you remember, we did these mathematically. So, you know, you can see the next slides, how much money they look to generate. So as a concept for discussion, I've updated the last future levies slide. Again, this is not an official recommendation. Go one more, Rob. It's not an official recommendation from administration, but kind of taking a bunch of conversations.
Yep,
And just
we've been talking.
trying to get something a little more definite. I think current expense levies, your fixed rate levy is probably based on election results in May. That might be your best bet at this point. Income taxes did not do well. I think we've talked about, and multiple board members have commented about having a defined term for this levy. And I think this get to the next thing, a 5-year length would cover the strategic plan. So that would be good. Would give us an opportunity to come back after the strategic plan was executed, with the results from that, and talk about.
It gets us to 2031.
Gets us there. And as far as amounts, I took two of the numbers. I discarded the bottom scenario 4 because it doesn't keep up with inflation. So the 6.1 mils is kind of right around your inflation numbers. And then the 8.53 mils is a little bit higher. But want to just put those things on the slide and get some reaction.
I suspect, I mean, I don't know, but I think we should be prepared for something coming out of this strategic plan for us to pay for things, something that's new. And that would make the 8.53 mil make sense. If we really had some big new strategic initiatives that come out of the plan.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, if you don't have a levy, you're not going to fund a strategic plan, so I don't know why we're having one. I mean, this is a questionable activity, very frankly, unless the people that want it so badly agree to have a levy. Because we don't have enough money to fund what we're doing right now or what we plan on doing. So it would seem to me that the strategic plan would be one of the reasons that we'd have to do it for sure, as well as the fact that we have a future regardless of what the strategic plan is. I mean, the children are coming. We have a school district, and we might be the last man standing among the urbans if this keeps up. So the 8 and the 6, that looks good. You had it figured out about some capital issues as well in there, that we can use some of this for capital purposes that are crucial or serious, like, Aiken sliding down the hill is an issue.
We don't want to lose our Aiken.
No.
We don't want to lose our Aiken.
No,
to the
we don't
hill.
want the farm to drop off and
We don't want to lose the
whatever.
farm.
I like the
it's a
fixed
start, but-
year, and I like the fixed and the smaller amount to get us to our celebration, to get us through to our bicentennial, as well as the close of the FMP. That's all good messaging. That's all good messaging. And I do, and everybody knows this, and the board members don't agree, but politically, as the person who's been doing this a long time, not just school board stuff, but political stuff, this particular November is going to have the optimum opportunity probably for any positive, because of who's going to be voting. In the first year I was on the board, the board decided to do something, a new money levy, because it was a primary when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were on the ballot. And they knew that those two constituencies would pass a new money levy. And that's what's that going to be, 2008 of May or so, and that was it. So you have to figure out what's happening. I feel badly for the people that went in the spring. That's not a good idea.
I think our levy strategy is going to be, I think the idea that the need for the levy is clear.
Yeah.
I think the levy strategy is going to be really important. Whether we go November now or next year or May, I think we've got to look at those options really, really carefully. And I also think that, we got a fairly short window here to do this. So we've got a shorter window than normal, I think, even if we can get the budget passed in May, and if we vote to do a levy in June, it's still a pretty tight window of timing to market this levy. And I do think that there's a component, because it's short, educating the business community around this is going to be critical to get them in front of this as quickly as we can, because that'll be the one constituent that can have a lot of influence on our success, I think.
Well, and I think that's part of the issue regarding Bellwether and Rice and all those
I didn't have my
folks.
microphone on for that, Rob. Is that okay? Did you get it anyway?
Mike, any closing remarks about this or thoughts, or when is the administration going to try to present such a thing? On Monday night, are you not doing a recommendation, but are you saying anything about this?
It's not on the agenda for Monday. I think.
I would
I
make
think
it
the-
part of your budget presentation, though, just not this necessarily, but again, the need for a levy somewhere.
Weave that in. Weave
Yeah,
that
weave
into
it
my
in.
opening slides, but
You don't have any money.
yes, I think
I'll restate this, but I do think that the paying off of the 2031 payoff is really critical to the strategic plan that we're in the middle of. If that's not, if you haven't already worked with Kenny on that, but I think that's a giant thing out there that's really important.
Well,
I don't, you know, I think it might be hard for the average voter to understand that in terms of why we just need a 5-year to get there. But I think the business community would understand that very well if we can get that communicated to them.
well, before we go to Michelle, I would also say, though, that the paying that off is a testament to the fact that the community and previous boards and our unions and our taxpayers in the community supported a $1.7 billion facilities master plan that we completed and funded and maintained. And indeed, when other districts are collapsing around us and other districts like us are having great problems, that's a big credibility build. That's a big credibility build. So, yeah, I would just, I think the levy thing has to be somewhere there. And the administration may have to recommend that you want us to meet earlier than the first, what is the first board meeting in June is it the 3rd or something?
I keep thinking the 8th, but that might be wrong.
My dad's birthday. You know, 2nd,
June 8th.
June 8th. That's starting to be way late. So you and the superintendent may want to talk to some of the union folks too about whether or not to recommend that we not, maybe we June 1, something like that. A week makes a difference in a campaign,
It does.
if indeed the board decides to do this. Other last comments from administration,
No, I
board
think,
members?
thank you for the feedback today. I think this was
Okay, good.
very useful meeting, very productive.
Good, with those contracts. Now, sorry to make you wait, Ms. Dunn.
Okay, Michelle Dunn with Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. Thank you for affirming many times who the villains are in this story. And it is a story of multi-year successive cuts. It's not the teachers spending enough time on some product. It's the deep cuts to student supports over the years that impact student outcomes, made possible by these state politicians. But what I want to talk about is I am flabbergasted that there's even some question that a levy should even be discussed. We are so far behind in this. I've been sitting in these meetings for months. I remember we started talking about the need for a levy months ago when Brendan Craig was chairman of this committee. We had a higher turnout than ever in the primary of Democratic voters in this county. So if you want to do a political analysis, you really don't want to compare our district with suburban districts in a May primary. We're looking ahead to a historic turnout in the midterm elections. That is a fact. And so to not put a levy, a desperately needed levy on the ballot, is sabotaging this district. And forgive me, but the two board members who are here are not the ones that we're really talking to. It is the full board. The Moody's report said strong governance to support a levy is required, and we are hugely disappointed in the fact that many board members have said publicly that they are not comfortable supporting a levy It's preposterous. I want to say that the strategic plan apparently had some community engagement session. Guess how many people showed up? 0. Parents and community don't care about a strategic plan. We care about strong, stable, thriving, open schools, particularly for our parents of special needs children who don't have the choices that other students do. So the fact that we do not even have a levy mentioned in the current agenda for Monday is unacceptable. Let the community decide whether they want to support our schools or not. The board simply has to put it up for the ballot. It is not your decision whether it passes or loses. It's your decision to offer us the opportunity to support our schools amid massive cuts. Shame on board members who decide that you don't feel like it will pass. That is not your decision. Your responsibility is to the fiscal health of this district, and it is a responsibility to allow our community to decide for themselves whether we want to support our schools or not. Please do the right thing and put a levy on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the comments greatly.
Thank you, much appreciated. Was that what was on boiling point too? No.
No. That was Mike's interview. But you had, what's his name, didn't you? Peter, legend. So who got you, Clayton, or who got you? Oh,
Clayton and Mark got me, yeah.
oh, Lord.
Yeah.
But no, I listened.
I got to listen to about the last 20 minutes of Michelle's, and then
She did great too. Well, Peter is, but at least he didn't make you all sit in a circle though, did he? Oh, my God. Thank you so much, Michelle. We appreciate it. And I know that all board members are seriously trying to work through this as best they can. And the encouragement and the advocacy and the scolding is all welcome and part of it. Appreciate it. If this has been helpful, and even if it hasn't been helpful, I think we would happily adjourn and appreciate this work and everybody taking the time. Thank you.